And happy Sunday. This is PFG Live, brought to you by Kinetic Precision in Southern New Hampshire. I'm Spencer Webb. Happy Sunday. This is Memorial Day weekend, and I fully expect we're going to be missing a bunch of people who are, celebrating and eating barbecue. Let's see. We had a weather report fly in from Art That Makes Art. Wes says, it's a beautiful day in south central Idaho. Great. Joel L. is there, and he says, Memorial Day. I think your graphics didn't come up. Here in Windham, New Hampshire, the temperature currently is 79 degrees, 56% relative humidity, and the winds are out of the east at 4 miles an hour. Also, at the Manchester Airport, which isn't terribly far from here, winds are 130 at 4 knots, visibility 10 miles, scattered clouds at 7,000, broken clouds at 9,500, temperature 26, 2.16, altimeter 292, which is standard, and the remarks are unimportant. So we have a crowd with us in Discord. Unix Carbide's here, Tuck's here, Widget Works, Nick MB from Canada, and Josh, Michael Juan, Error. Let me just explain. That wasn't an error. That's his username. Error. Welcome aboard. Robert Simpson showed up. And K-Bonk is checking in on the YouTube out of the Philadelphia. He's copying us 5x5, 87 and cloudy. Welcome, K-Bonk. Nice to see you. Unix Carbide reporting from the Williamsburg of Brooklyn, 77 Fahrenheit, 10.29% relative humidity in the filament dehydrator. Welcome aboard. Widget Works from the Edmonton, Alberta of the Canada, 14 degrees science and cloudy. Nick MB says 14 degrees science and partly sunny in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's been raining all week, so nice to see some sun. Awesome. Well, whoa, we got another one on YouTube. Indiana John, welcome aboard, sir. Sunny in northern New Hampshire. Well, it's sunny, kind of sunny in southern New Hampshire. I see a few clouds. Nice to see you, buddy. What else we got going on? So, Michael Juan says it's 18 degrees science and cloudy in Southern California. I thought it was never cloudy in Southern California. I thought the weather was always perfect. And Josh just discovered there's a second person in Manitoba. This is the place. This is where you find out things like that. It is Memorial Day weekend, and this is the weekend that we spend a few minutes and we remember those who gave their lives in the defense of freedom. So take a few minutes this weekend and think about that. And if you know somebody specific, give them a thought. And I appreciate the sacrifices. Error is reporting 18 degrees C, 67% air humidity in Ghent, Belgium. We know who else is in Ghent, Belgium. And now it raises the question, where is Evils? And we need to figure that out. So, or should I say, where is Evils? Doink, doink. So, we have a couple of topics today. K-Bonk, yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Does that do it, K-Bonk? Everybody reminds me to remind you, so I just want you to know that. If you're listening on the audio podcast, first of all, welcome. You're probably busy doing stuff in the shop, and that's also awesome. I do the same thing. I always have a podcast going in my ears when I'm working in the shop. Okay, so we have a couple of topics. The big topic, the 800-pound elephant in the room, is the fact that I got the new FormLabs Form 4 printer, and it's up and running, and it's working. But it provided a story. So we have a little bit of a story to share with you today about that. First of all, overall experience has been 100%. So it's a great printer. Happy to have it on the team. Couldn't be happier with it. I'm looking for a picture to show you guys. That was, I don't know if I could find it. It came in on Friday, of course, and I waited for it because I knew it was coming in. You know, you have the notification from UPS, and my phone went bing, and so now I'm tracking the truck. So this is a feature. I don't know who is able to get access to this feature, but we have this feature where you're able to track the truck when it's nearby. So I'm watching the clock because I have to go get Jared. And I see the truck, and it's getting close. And it's on the east side of the highway from me. I'm on the west side of the highway, and it's doing that local neighborhood. And then all of a sudden it crosses underneath the highway, and it's now real close to me on the west side. And I'm like, okay, looking at the clock, it's going to get here. I'll go get Jared. It's all going to work out. And then a few minutes later, I check again, and the truck is on the east side of the highway again. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I made the logical conclusion that their tracking algorithm, their display algorithm is all nonsense. It's just there as a pacifier, and it's not real. So I write that off, and it gets to the time where I have to go get Jared, and I'm texting with him, and I'm like, okay. I told Jared, I said, be ready for a fast pickup. I'm going to come 4-wheel drift through the parking lot at the high school. I'm going to grab you with a hook, and then we're heading back to the house. Well, the universe, of course, has a sense of humor. So I head out to get Jared, and I texted, using voice commands in the truck. I text a neighbor of mine. I'm like, are you home? And he comes back to me and says, no, I'm not home. I'm at work. I'm at a job site. I text another neighbor. I said, are you home? He goes, yeah, I'm mowing my lawn. I said, keep an eye out for the UPS truck, please. Let me know if you see it. And then I get a funny text from my friend, John Betancourt. John's awesome. And he said he's a knife maker, and we've talked about him before, but we'll give him a plug later. And John says, sends me a funny. So I said, John, where are you? He said, oh, I'm driving past the thing. I'm like, could you go to my house and get ready for this delivery, because I am at the high school and I want coverage. I want to make sure it's covered. So he says, sure, I'll do that. So John heads over to the house, and what do you know? The truck shows up. I mean, it was like basically perfect timing. So thank you very much, John, for keeping an eye out and meeting the UPS truck. And he sends me this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this picture. He sends me this picture. He posts it to his story on Instagram of him sitting in the comfy white chair that I have outside my shop, watching the UPS truck back up right toward his face. So anyway, I appreciate that very much. That was super cool. So it arrived. It arrived safely, and Jared helped me get it down into the basement. And I had a picture up. Oh yeah, here it is. So this picture here is a picture of the Form 3 and all of its accoutrements, totally ready for pickup. So we cleaned everything, we emptied trays, we got everything together, even put the dust cover on top of the Form 3. It looks really nice. So it's ready. You know who you are. There's a gentleman from Ohio who is traveling to Worcester, Massachusetts with his first robotics team, Warren, Ohio. And they're gonna be buying the Form 3 from me. So it's awesome. So next week he'll come up, pick up the package. So it's all ready to go. But anyway, I went ahead and I got the Form 4 set up on the table, did all the stuff that you do. Let's see. And see if I can get you a picture of the full setup here. It was a FormLabs printer, which means it's, you know, pretty simple to set up and get it going. Right up until I'm like, okay, I'm ready to print. I'm going to print something. So the way the FormLabs printers work is that you run Preform, which is their software on your computer, and Preform will shoot your printing stuff over to the printers in your library, in your, you know, database, and it will do everything. It'll take care. It'll start the print, and everything's great. Hey, Proteum's here. Welcome aboard, Proteum. So I do that, and it says your printer's firmware is old, and it needs to be updated before you could print. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go over to the printer, and I go through the menus on the printer, which by the way, quite nice, easy to use. And I get to the settings, and sure enough, I find a line that says something about update firmware. So I hit the button, and it says firmware 1.3. something is available. Updating the firmware, do not turn off your printer. So I'm like, fine. So I'm sitting there waiting, and the little canonical bar goes marching across the screen, and then it comes back with some text, and I'm like, oh, I guess it's done. And I read the text, and it says, version 1.3. something is available. Press this button to update. I'm like, weren't we here already? So I hit the button again. And you know the rest of the story. We go right back around the loop, and it comes back and it says, firmware 1.3. something is available to update. And I'm like, oh boy. So this is Friday afternoon on Memorial Day weekend. Guess how many people I have available to help me? Answer, 0. It was actually 6 p.m. or so. I think it was about 6 o'clock that I finally got to this. Okay. I basically threw the towel in, and I said, this isn't going to happen. So I was thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and I realized the printer is on the network. So when you say update, it's going to go to the server and try to, that's the operative term there. It's going to try to download the file and update its firmware. And what if I manually download the file? So because reasons, I have the computer that is on the same network as that the printer is on was about 20 feet away. No problem. It's at the ham radio station. So I go over to the ham radio station and I sit down. I have to first install Preform, because that computer wasn't intended to have Preform on it. And now it actually is a pretty good idea. I figured out how to download the file so that the file, which had an extension of something like .form data or something like that, was now on my computer. And then I went into Preform and I figured out how to manually push the update. And it said, hey, do you want me to update your printer? I'm like, no, I want you to update my printer with this file. And a couple of minutes later, it said, okay, I've done that, and your printer is, you know, chewing up that file right now. So I get up and I walk back to the printer, and sure enough, I had the same thing. I had the logo with the bar marching across the screen, and I crossed my fingers, and it worked. So that did it. And from that point on, everything was just rosy. But they will be, you know, it happens, right? The printer was shipped with 1.1. something firmware, and we were up to 1.3 dot something firmware. So clearly there was a disconnect in the update processes, and we got past it. But I will be talking to my good friends at FormLabs and relaying all this to them. That was the big stumbling block. There was some other minor stuff, but as far as what I ordered, but that's just on me. Yeah, Proteum says software bugs on a brand new product? No way. So if that's the biggest software bug I have to deal with on this particular project, I'm totally okay with it. So, up and running, making prints, and everything is glorious. So, I printed a couple things. You know, here's a little thing I printed for Jared. He's working on a project of his own. A funny story about this. This was actually the second print I did on the new Form 4. And it came out great. And I gave it to Jared. And Jared comes over to me, and I have a video of this. You'll have to be on our Discord server to see it. But he basically says, I screwed up. I'm like, oh, really? So this was would you agree, Jared? Would you agree that this was P1? Was this P1? He goes, yes. And I said, between the time I handed it to you and the time you came to me to tell me that it was no longer useful because it uncovered an error, how long was that? He says, about 15 minutes. And I congratulated him, and he is now indoctrinated in the world of P1. So that was the second print I did. But the very first print I did is this little guy here, which we call a Kiki. And this is, somebody came up with this. It's smaller than a Benchy. It has a bunch of very specific things that it does and does really well. And my Kiki came out superb. And I did a post about this on Instagram. And, you know, the top part of it that has these square protrusions. Oh, thank you. Thank you for Kiki in the chat. And by the way, if you're on Discord and you can get that link, there it is. It's on printables. The model number is 419247. It is called the Calibration Kiki, K-I-K-I, by Cyman 101. And it's terrific. So, and Unix Carbide turned me on to this particular little model. It's really cute. So I got the Kiki, and it just looks just awesome. Oh, okay. I'll give a little credit here. Unix says that somebody from the Void Star Labs Discord made this one. So there you go. So Kiki said, nice printer. That's what Kiki said. Kiki said, darn nice printer. Now, I printed this at 0.05 millimeters per layer. And I kid you not, on the back, the nice smooth surface, you cannot tell that it was 3D printed, which is amazing. So that is a win. I have only started printing with the new gray filament, known as Gray version 5. Now, if you recall, yes. That is the smallest layer height I have seen on the Form 4 Proteum, is 50 microns. But I'm telling you, I can't imagine wanting smaller than that. This is crazy. It's gorgeous. But yes, the answer is yes. Also, the relative speed printing the Kiki on the Form 4 versus the Form 3 is on the order of a 3x speed up. It's actually a teeny bit less because it's got such a small footprint. On the Form 3, as the footprint grows, that time goes up fast. On the Form 4, as that footprint grows, it doesn't change the time. So I could have printed, I don't know, probably 50 of these on the bed, and it would have been, an hour and 22 minutes. I printed one of them, and it was an hour and 22 minutes. If you did that on the Form 3, strap in. It could be 5 times slower. Good quality, but 5 times slower. Another thing I will point out, the layer time. I didn't say the layer time. I don't want to misquote it, but the overall time was about an hour and 22 minutes for the Form 4 and about 3 hours and 22 minutes on the Form 3. And that's for one kiki. Okay. So it really depends on the model. And if you have any specific things you want to check on that, let me know, and I could test them for you on. Anybody can download Preform, which is their software, stick a model in it, and play with it, slice it, look at the estimated times, and that'll work out really well. So this new version of Gray version 5. This is the PLA of resin printer resins for FormLabs. Okay, so this is baby's first resin, and they also improved it. And I don't have a report for you yet, but Gray version 4 was quite brittle, and I am told. And then they had a Gray Pro, which was the resin equivalent of PLA Plus or PLA Tough. It was a little tougher, and now I am told that Gray version 5 is much closer to their Gray Pro, and I will test that. And the way I'm going to test that, by the way, is I'm going to print one of the Grimsmo bearing cages, and I'm going to put balls in it. And if it doesn't crack, because it cracked on the V4, if it doesn't crack and the ball snaps in, then that is a clear indication that it's tougher. So we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting. But the filament, listen to me, the resin Gray V5 looks really sweet. And the machine looks really sweet. So I have not yet started printing with my favorite, which is Tough 1500. I have some ready to go, and we will report back. So overall, it's pretty darn nice. So to not answer exactly Proteum's question, the layer time was, if I had a guess, maybe 3 seconds. It was on the order of 3 seconds per layer. Just by memory. It was pretty impressive. They did a bunch of other stuff which you don't realize, at least I didn't realize until I had the printer in my shop on my bench. Yes, so WidgetWorks points out, he says, I want to see something printed in their silicone material. They have a silicone resin now that is silicone, and I think that's pretty cool. So let's talk, because if you have a specific thing you want to see printed, I will buy the resin and I will buy a tray, and we will dedicate it to that and try it out, because I think it's cool. So yeah, very happy. It's so far so good, and we'll try some more materials and get going. Gaskets. Oh, okay. So WidgetWorks is interested in gaskets. Let's do it, man. Let's make a project, and we'll try it out. If you're just tuning into this whole FormLabs thing, O-rungs. I know what you meant. O-rings, yeah, that could be quite interesting. The Form 3 exposed, it had a laser in it, and it exposed one line and then moved, and then one line and then moved, and it had to do that to do a full layer. The Form 4 has a great big honking light source with some really cool optics, and it goes bam, and it exposes the whole layer at once, which I recognize is how all of the quote, inexpensive resin printers work. But they really engineered the crap out of it, and it looks great. So Protium Machining asks, are you printing things often enough that if they come out with the Form Auto for the F4, you'd consider it? $2,000 is fairly cheap for automation. So if you're not familiar with FormLabs, they have a setup called the Form Auto, which is based on the Form 3. And what it does is you could print parts and it will automatically clear your print bed and then start your next round of parts. And I saw it at the showroom, at their print lab, and it's pretty cool. Right now, it's only set up for the Form 3. I would be stunned if they did not get that set up for the Form 4. But I did not hear one peep about that, probably because I wasn't interested in the automation part. So to answer your question, am I printing enough things? The answer is no. But that's a path I can go down if I trip over some project that leads me there. So at the moment, no. I make the nozzles. That's my coolant nozzles, the focused coolant nozzles. I make the nozzles via resin printing. And that's what I was making in a production mode on the Form 3. In fact, just before I sold the Form 3, I printed a bunch of nozzles just so that I'd fill the gap of the learning curve on the Form 4. So if I have NOS production hit the point where that becomes interesting, first of all, I'll be very happy because that's cool. Second of all, yeah, I'd be willing to go down that road. So yeah, there you go. Also, I should point out that there's no business arrangement between me and FormLabs. Just because I'm talking a lot about it, it's because I'm really excited about the product. The only quote arrangement, and this is true for every single FormLabs customer, is that you get a referral code. And if you share your referral code with somebody and they place an order with FormLabs, you get rewarded and they get rewarded exactly the same amount. So the information for that is at pfg.gg/links, and look for the FormLabs stuff. Hey, Test Room 2003, welcome aboard, sir. He says, good evening, checking in late from Oskapelle, Netherlands. Sunny, 17 degrees science, and 78% relative humidity. Nice to see you. He says he just came back from the workshop printing round to square collets for your Decal SO. Excellent. Nice to hear. Woodwork says, sounds like you need a new shill. I mean, sponsor post. So I don't have sponsors. You guys know that. But the closest I would come is FormLabs because I think they're cool. And they're right down the street. And they make a good product. And etc. I got a message today on Instagram, this while we're still on the FormLabs thing. And who was it that asked me, I can't remember. I'll remember later. They said, how does the resin smell on the FormLabs printer? And my answer to them was this: 0. Now, that's going to be hard to believe until you experience it. And that's what happened to me when I first went down there for the first time I bought the Form 3. And I walked into their print farm ready to put a gas mask on. And there was nothing. So, keep that in mind. Protein Machining says, if you could make anti-drip nozzles that don't suck, looking at you, Lockline, says Proteum, you'd need that automation for sure. Let's talk, dude, because I have ideas. And I'm not joking. Yeah, I'd be interested in looking at that problem. It's pretty cool. I also, by the way, purchased in the past for my vertical machining center, I bought the check valves from Lockline. And I can't remember if I really thought they did a great job. But apparently you don't. and I want to hear more. And Widget Works correctly says they suck. Okay, got it. On the grinder, on the Okamoto, I actually have a brass proper check valve that I use, 6 inches upstream from the NOS, and it works quite well. But of course, that's a standard plumbing brass device. Pixel's in the chat. Welcome aboard, Pixel. QD Smits, welcome aboard. And there we go. So I think you're up to date on the FormLabs stuff. Keep an eye open. I'll post to Instagram as we continue to have little victories. Of course, I will be discussing it on our Discord server in a little more open format. But I wanted to keep you posted. All right. As usual, if you guys have questions, comments, or snide remarks, feel free to put it into the YouTube chat or the Discord chat, as you see on your screen. So that is, you're up to date. And let's see. The next topic, of course, if you have questions on the printing stuff, I'll come back to it. But the next topic, of course, is Kish and Moly, a true story. Do you see what I did there? So, you guys remember who Kish is and who Moly is when we last met our heroes? So, I'm referring, of course, to the 1975, I think I said 73 at some point in the past, and for that I apologize, but the 1975 patent, U.S. patent, by Istvan T. Kish of Minnetonka, Minnesota, who filed this patent on February 11th, whoops, wrong date, March 18th, 1974. And it resulted in patent number 3921616 on November 25th, 1975. It is entitled Process for Truing a Diamond Wheel Utilizing a Molybdenum Tool, in which he basically says when you have to true a diamond wheel, this method is more efficient than using what we now call rotary devices, right, or brake-controlled truing devices, which use small wheels like aluminum oxide or silicon carbide wheels. And this, of course, was quite intriguing, and this has been known for a while. And the nice thing about it is you can implement this method if you just have a little stick of molybdenum. Now, of course, I forgot to bring up a little stick of molybdenum to show you, but a stick of molybdenum that you can put into a grinder vise on your grinder is all you need to execute this method, except for one thing. You have to slow down your wheel. So Kish points out that this works at a low surface feet per minute. And I've been pretty careful to post that information. I think it was 600 to 700. 600 to 700 surface feet per minute. There is a picture of a brake-controlled truing device. And WidgetWorks says, I had them on the grinder and tossed them as they never actually worked. So I have used them. I have one. Bought it on eBay, probably bought it from you. And they are relatively inefficient. And you have to use up a bunch of that little wheel to get the effect you want. That's a problem because we're kind of used to, doing a thing, zip, zip, zip with a diamond on an aluminum oxide wheel and having an immediate effect. And these are very slow, which is what motivated Kish to do something that was more efficient. So a piece of moly run across a diamond wheel at 600 to 700 surface feet per minute does the job. So here's your references. Yeah. When I got my brake controlled truing device, I took it apart for a couple of reasons, and I posted about it, by the way. If you look way back in my archive on Instagram, you'll find the video. But I wanted to see how it worked, and of course I wanted to clean it and lube it, etc. Also, I adjusted it. I actually found a reference for how to adjust these things. But the long story short is that what it's doing, the brake controlled truing device is a rotable wheel. So when you bring your big wheel down on it, it spins up the little wheel and then puts the brakes on so that you get the low surface feet per minute. In other words, this low surface feet per minute is necessary regardless of how you're trying to true a diamond wheel. And the reason for that, as we've talked about before, is that if you go fast, the diamond wins. The diamond is hard and it will rip through anything you put in front of it. But if you go just the right speed, you could smack those diamonds out of there. And that's what the aluminum oxide does. That's what the moly does. But the moly, Robin Renzetti, in his video about using molybdenum, he said it galls very easily. I think that's a term you can relate to. I like to use the analogy of it's like a mud puddle sucking the galoshes off your feet. If you go just the right, wrong speed across the mud puddle, you lose a boot. So that's what molybdenum does. So having talked about moly, there's a picture of the guts. There you go. Is it three? It's 3 brakes, right? So the brake controlled truing device has a cup in which a spinning member that has 3 little bronze pads that shoot out. The faster you spin it, the harder those bronze pads are hitting the cylinder, and there's springs in there for adjustment, etc., etc. Thanks, Widget. That's useful. If you're watching the video, if you're listening to the podcast, you're going, what the hell are they talking about? So I got pinged enough on this molybdenum stuff that everybody wanted to get molybdenum, and I'm like, well, I might be able to take care of that for you, and blah blah blah. Finally, it's a product. It's on my store. 2-inch stick of molybdenum. Now, for me, a 2-inch stick of molybdenum goes about a year. Might go less if you're doing some pretty demanding things with your diamond wheel. But for me, on my diamond wheels, it goes about a year. And it's on the store. I think it's $35, and there you go. Or you have a huge wheel. Yes, I guess so. My wheels are 7-inch diameter, 1/2 inch wide. If you have a huge wheel like WidgetWorks, I noticed that everything he has is bigger. Why is that? Yeah, you could wear it out quicker. So it turns out that there they are. You need a banana for scale, dude. It just looks like every other grinding wheel I've ever seen in your picture here. We need a banana. Do you have a banana? Anyway, I think those are 12 or 14 inches. WidgetWorks uses some big wheels. So the company that makes the molybdenum is called Elmet, and they're up in Maine. They're not too far from me. And I threatened to come visit, go up there. So the next time I have to order molybdenum, yes, 14 inches. So WidgetWorks has got 14-inch wheels. And It's not the diameter, it's how you use it. Just remember that. I am going to head up to Elmet, who are in Lewiston, Maine, and I'm going to visit them. Nice people. We've had lots of phone conversations about Moly, and it's a win. Yep, there it is. Thank you, Unix. Good golly, Miss Moly. So if you're interested in trying this truing technique, go to the website. I actually have a brand new link just for the Moly Sticks, which is, this is going to shock you, Moly, MOLY .gg. It'll take you right there. Couple of points about using Moly. You have to slow the wheel down. If you're sitting there going, oh yeah, I know you're supposed to slow the wheel down, but I can't slow the wheel down, so I'm just going to use it at full speed. Don't order the Moly because all you're going to do is effectively grind molybdenum. And that's not what you're here for. You're here to true your wheel. You have to slow it down. So if you have a VFD on your spindle, awesome. Do the calculations, do what you got to do to get it in the pocket, 600 to 700 surface feet per minute. If not, you could use a trick, which is in a video by Robin Renzetti. I know that comes as a shock to you, but it is a trick from Robin, in which Robin shows turning off the spindle, and as it coasts down, using your spidey sense, you can go zipping through there at about the right speed. And then if you have to kick it with the power to keep it there, you can do it. Yeah, big arbors. Yes, correct, Proteum. Stick drill on the nut. I have no idea what that means, sir, but I'm sure you're going to explain it in chat. So the nice thing is, again, you can have this in the toolbox and you don't need anything but a little grinding vise. In a lot of my pictures, I show this little hockey puck that I made for holding my molybdenum stick. And that's not a product. If enough of you yell at me that you want it, we'll make it a product. But you really only need a little grinding vise to do this. Or drive the spindle with a hand drill. Oh, that is borderline brilliant, Pixel and Widget. So, okay, here's what they're saying. You ready? Take a hand drill that gets you to the right RPM, because it's going to be kind of lowish, and drive your spindle with it from the wheel nut. That is brilliant. Gentlemen, I am proud to be associated with you. Oh, Pixel says, I think I'm just interpreting what Widget said. Widget, again, comes to the rescue. So maybe a hand drill can do that. I'm going to have to do some calculations. Pretty cool. You want it to be going in that pocket so that it does the job. Okay, let's do a little thought experiment. You have to get that into that speed range, and then you're going to run that. It's going to yoink the errant diamonds out. Okay, and it's going to leave you with your nice flat surface. A minor lie, but you know, just let's fantasize for the moment. And then you think you're done. You are not done. The next thing you need to do is you just trued your wheel with molybdenum. Now you need to dress your wheel with another tool, and the other tool is known as a dressing stick. So what the dressing stick does is it removes the binder around the diamonds. Okay, if you're on video, you get a treat here. So if you've just got all your diamonds nice and level, but they're at the same level as your binder, it removes the binder, leaving the diamonds right where they are. If you go to moly.gg, I have a link to Robin Renzetti's video. I have a link to an ancient Norton video that teaches you how to use a dressing stick. It's really simple. The biggest problem I find with people using dressing sticks is that they don't use enough dressing stick. There it is. WidgetWorks. You're like in the still image department today. WidgetWorks is showing in his picture what dressing sticks look like. They're available on McMaster-Carr. They have their standard Norton parts. I use a 220 grit. I think I have 150s and 220s. It's an aluminum oxide stick of very low, very high friability, which means its binder in the stick is relatively low strength, and it's ablative. You run that dressing stick in, and the action does what it does, and you use a lot of the dressing stick up. In the Norton video, they will say that you could use 3/4 to a full dressing stick to do a proper dressing job. They're not super expensive. And you can tell once you start doing this, you could feel the wheel. And okay, case in point, WidgetWorks says, I need 2 sticks to dress a 14-inch wheel. Any questions? No questions. Okay, good. So if we're in the 7-inch wheel world, which is my world, it makes sense that you're going to use almost a full wheel. So it's a roll of paper towels, people. It's a box of tissues. You're going to use them up. You use them up. WidgetWorks says they're soft as hell. Yes. So watch the ancient Norton video. It's excellent. The only thing they are not showing in the Norton video, I think they say it in the words, but they don't show it, is that you run coolant when you're doing this to keep the dust down, because it will make a heck of a lot of dust. So if you have coolant, full coolant, okay, and use extreme caution because your hands are in there, okay? So you dress to expose the diamonds, which is really another way of saying you're lowering the binder around the diamonds that you just put on the correct level, and you're done. And that's it. Now, here's a dirty little secret. When you're grinding aluminum oxide, you don't have to worry about it. And what do I do most of the time? I'm grinding aluminum oxide. So, and that, by the way, that's done at regular speeds, I should point out. So once you're done with the molybdenum at 600 to 700 surface feet per minute, you could do your dressing at regular speeds. Yep. And WidgetWorks correctly says you can also just mount them in a vise and grind them if you are shy. That's a great answer. Thank you, sir. Yeah, because we don't want people going in there that, and hurting themselves. But you could use a vise to do the same thing. But you'll see in the Norton video they do it manually. Those are dressing sticks. I do not sell dressing sticks, but they're available everywhere. And if you yell at me and say, you really should be selling dressing sticks with the molybdenum sticks, okay, I'll figure out a way to do that because I buy a lot of Norton stuff and it wouldn't be that hard. So I did a little more research on molybdenum because molybdenum sounds evil. And it's not. Molybdenum is an element. Its symbol is MO. What a shocker. It is a metal. And, it can give you some cause for concern. So let me be your walking, talking material safety data sheet because I did a little research. So the first thing I did is I found a paper. This paper is entitled Assessment of Molybdenum Toxicity in Humans. This is from the Journal of Applied Toxicology, May-June 1999, etc., etc. It says, abstract. In an attempt to define a tolerable daily intake, TDI, for molybdenum based on toxicological risk analysis approach, a large literature survey was conducted, etc., etc. It goes on to say that, I'll give you the last line. The TDI is given a medium confidence rating. This TDI is more than double the upper limit of adequate intake for adolescents and adults that was derived from the molybdenum content of the average diet in the USA. So basically what they said is molybdenum is not a toxic substance in reasonable amounts, okay? We'll get to that, Cutie Smiths. Good question. Good question. Stand by. So the first thing I learned from that paper is, yeah, it's not evil material. You don't have to take super extra crazy proportions to, actions to protect yourself. But there's a hint in there that says, wait a minute, it said something about dietary requirements. So I did another search, and I basically found out that molybdenum, trace molybdenum, is a required nutrient in your diet, which is crazy. There you go. Unix Carbide just posted a link to the molybdenum content of foods from the whole food catalog. So let me read you this summary from this paper. This is from the Institute of Medicine. This is from the National Institute of Health. Molybdenum functions as a cofactor for a limited number of enzymes in humans. The primary criterion used to set an estimated average requirement is molybdenum balance in controlled studies with specific amounts of molybdenum consumed. Adjustments are made for the bioavailability of molybdenum. The recommended daily allowance, the RDA, for adult men and women is 45 micrograms a day, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then it says the average dietary intake of molybdenum by adult men and women is 109 and 76 micrograms a day. The tolerable upper intake limit, they call it UL, is 2 milligrams a day, a level based on impaired reproduction and growth in animals. So, just like every other substance on the planet, there's a limit as to what you should shove in your face. It's not a toxic substance in normal amounts. You actually need it. It is in your food, so it's generally a safe material. But can we absorb it through our lungs? I never tried, sir. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Golly, I'm going to be grinding this stuff. Treat it like all the other stuff you grind. Do not put it in your lungs. So that's the story. I did a little homework on molybdenum. Fear not. And if you want, I'll put the link to these papers in the molybdenum page when I get around to it. If only I had around to it. So that's the story on Moly. It's a miracle drug. I mean, it's good for what ails you. Let's see. Boom. I think we answered all your questions. I am looking for my list. Forgive me. I lost my slide. There it is. The final thing I want to talk about, yeah, Widgetworks. Widgetworks says, smoke a filtered cigarette while grinding for safety. No, do not do that. At all, ever. So, I promised another gedanken experiment on what I'm calling grinding wheel uniformity. So I'm into balancing grinding wheels, truing grinding wheels, of course, dressing grinding wheels, balancing them again, using them, and trying to do perfect grinds. And I had an epiphany, and that is this. We're going to do a little thought experiment here. Perfect. That's correct, Unix. Perfect. So let's mentally do a little experiment. We're going to take a grinding wheel, okay, and we're going to mount it to an arbor. In the case of diamond wheels, we like to put an indicator on them and get them all centered up as best we can before we take another step. For aluminum oxide wheels, we tend to, we don't like worry about it too much because we could take as much off as we want and it's easy. But let's just assume we do that. Then we're going to mount it on our grinder and then we're going to true it, right? So aluminum oxide wheel, diamond wheel, doesn't matter. We're going to use our technique, diamond nub, molybdenum, whatever, and we're going to true it, meaning we're going to get the shape of the wheel into a circle with its center on the spindle. So far, so good, right? Life is good. Now we're going to take it off the spindle and we're going to balance it. If you want to be, dwell on perfectionism, you're going to mark your spindle so that you could put it on in the same orientation. So we go over to the balancing stand, which might be a BS8 by Kinetic Precision. Go to bal.gg. And we're going to balance that wheel using a balancing ring or some other technique. If you choose to use a balancing ring, and you can use a balancing ring on your Sopco 100, 200, or 300 series hubs, you can go over to rin.gg and learn about the B200 balancing ring. But I digress. We balance the wheel, okay? We put it back on the spindle. Perhaps now is the time to dress the wheel, which could take any one of a number of forms. And we go to town and everything's perfect, right? I figured out that there's something we didn't consider, and that's called grinding wheel uniformity. So let's assume that we're using an aluminum oxide wheel, and we're just going to do a thought experiment. I want you to go to the periphery of the wheel, and on one of the on one of the radii, we're going to drill a hole. Let's say we have a 1/2 inch wheel. I'm going to drill a 3/8 inch or a 1/4 inch hole into the wheel. Okay. What is that going to do? That's going to remove material and change the balance. Okay. So what do? We go back to our balancing wheel and we balance everything up. We true everything up and we dress everything and we're ready to go. But there's this hole on the grinding wheel. First of all, if you walked up to a grinder and you found this hole drilled radially in your wheel, would you even turn that wheel on? I wouldn't. But this is a gedanken experiment and everything. These are perfect materials, so don't worry about that. But what happens as the grinding wheel is going around? As the grinding wheel is going around, yeah, I'm not even going to repeat that. As the grinding, WidgetWorks, okay, I'll repeat it. WidgetWorks says, I'd be working at Suburban Tool. Yes, you would. And there would be a run on carbide drill bits. As the wheel's going around, it's cutting material, right? Everything's cool, right up until it gets to the part with the hole in it. And now it's cutting less material. In other words, its contact patch area has shrunk because of that hole. There's a missing piece of wheel, and then it continues to across the hole, and it goes back to where it was. And the contact patch that's doing the cutting is back to where it was for most of the wheel's revolution. What's going to happen? I claim that what's going to happen is that the load on the wheel is going to be less in the vicinity of that hole than it will everywhere else on the wheel. That change in load is going to change how the rubber spindle is bent, and it's going to change the load on the wheel and cause something in the surface of your part that is visible. Okay. Widget works. Excellent. Says it's like using a chipped wheel. Great. It leaves a skip mark. Great. How do we compensate for that? What would you do, WidgetWorks? How would you compensate for a chip in your wheel? Which is why I yelled at McMaster Carr for how they were shipping me wheels. They fixed it, by the way. What would you do to fix that? I'll tell you what I would do to fix that, but I want to see. Get another wheel. See, I love it. That's a very good way to do it. If it's an aluminum oxide wheel of no particularly great value, you could dress it out. You can keep dressing until the chip goes away. Yeah, there we go. Dress it down. Okay? So the problem is that except for basically making that hole go away or that chip go away, we don't have any magic. You can't balance it away. You can't true it away, and you can't dress it away. You have to get rid of it because, again, in that vicinity, it changes the load on the wheel. It's going to be visible in the part. Now, does it always matter? Not necessarily. But if you're going for perfect, it's something that we haven't compensated for, and you can't compensate it for it with all of the tools we have in our toolbox. I bet you think I'm done. I'm not done. Now imagine, here it is. There it is. WidgetWorks says, I have a cheap diamond wheel that I can't get to make a good finish because it's not even enough. There it is. So what do you do with that cheap diamond wheel that doesn't make a good finish? You make it a frisbee. Sorry, that's a trademark. You make it a golf disc golf. Anyway. Now let's go back, continue our gedanken experiment, and go back to an aluminum oxide wheel. By the way, there's a Triolit had some video, I think it was on Titans of CNC, where they showed them making wheels and they showed the mold and they showed pressing the mold and then going into the firing. And let's make a wheel, except our grit and our vitrifying material are not in uniform proportions in our mix. In other words, there's more grit on one side of the wheel and there's more vitrifying material on the other side of the wheel. In other words, in the manufacturing process of making this aluminum oxide wheel, it's not uniform. I forgot to stir the batter. I forgot to shake my protein shake. Okay? You now try to use that wheel. Visually, you might not see anything. But what's going to happen? This exact problem. We're going to call this, from this point forward, grinding wheel uniformity, or uniformity of grit. WidgetWorks says, I'll send it to you. It's 14 inches, so you're going to need a big bench grinder. Proteum says, I'm just waiting for the wheel.gg announcement. No, sir, there will not be such an announcement. So if you buy, there's another hint, by the way, in what WidgetWorks says, and we'll wrap this up. He says, I have a cheap diamond wheel that I can't get to make a good finish because it's not even enough. What's the key word in that sentence? Anybody? Bueller? Correctamundo. Cheap. Okay? Unix Carbide says cheap. Okay? Tucker says get? That's incorrect, Tuck. We'll be talking in the after show. So, you know, when you spend, what did I say? Was it 2 episodes ago? The expensive stuff is always cheaper. Okay. I use this, again, hashtag not sponsored here, people. I use diamond wheels from CDT, Continental Diamond Tool. U.S. company. I think they're in, I can't remember, but look them up. CDT, Continental Diamond Tool. Beautiful, gorgeous stuff. I trust their stuff. It works. No problem. If I have questions, problems, I need something special, which I did, they took care of me. They were awesome. Okay? You know what I needed special? I wanted the hole in the middle of my wheel not to be 1.250000. I wanted a little bigger hole. And it's been a while, but we had that conversation. Norton is a good brand, and I use Norton stuff all the time. And I don't mind paying more for Norton. All of your PFG Stones, people, all of your PFG Stones, available at PFGstones.com. All of your PFG Stones are Norton material for this reason, okay? I don't have to worry about it. It's not cheap Chinese junk. It's not rejects from some other company, okay? It's quality product. So that's the only way I know how to solve the grinding wheel uniformity problem, is to start with a quality product. You still have to true it, balance it, dress it, and treat it nice. With that, I think we did it. I think we arrived at the punchline. Yes, and you can get PFG.GG takes you to the exact same place as PFGstones.com, Tuck. But thank you for looking out for me. Dude, Unix Carbide, you should use your PFG Stones any way you want, okay? And just come back to buy more, okay? All right, we're good. Can you spin them? Yeah, you could spin anything, absolutely. Like in a 4-jaw chuck? No, even that I will not buy into. I'm sorry, you can't do that. Thank you for being here. Listen, go have a barbecue and go have a great 3-day weekend if you're in the United States of America. And spend a minute to think about those who gave their ultimate sacrifice. And the most important thing is to get flat and stay flat. And we'll see you next week.